Okay, so the first thing we want to do is make kind of like these dots to kind of mimic the same image that we have. So we'll make a dot that's bigger where it's darker and smaller where it's lighter, and you could do that and or vice versa. So I'm going to slide this out of the way here, and we're going to look for a function called circle by center point and radius. Um, and actually a normal direction also we need. Just so the circle's facing in the way we want it to be. So I'm going to take and actually not feed anything in that right away. I'm going to make a couple of adjustments here. So one of the things is we can actually put in the center point. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's put the center point in just to see what we've got here, and then go ahead and run this. And right away, it's starting to take a lot of time to do this, and it's a very simple computation. It really shouldn't take that much time. I might hit pause here for a second. So you can actually see now how the circles are horizontal. So we need the right vector. So we need to work in, I believe it's the y-axis. So I'm going to go vector. And then we're going to look for, let's see, maybe I'll just do dot y. See if that finds it for us, y-axis. Want to get the right orientation, so that's going to be the normal. And then we need to have some control over the radius of that circle, and that's going to be controlled by this kind of brightness. So we have this input of the list, and we want to make a modification to it to control its size. So if I put this in, if I put this list in, oops, I'm sorry. If I plug this list in right to the radius, we're not going to have any control over that. I'm going to go ahead and hit run again, just so you can see where we're at. So I'll do run, and I might put it, run completed with warnings. Okay, so here we have now all of the circles. That actually worked faster this time. That's nice. We now have kind of you can see the mountain ranges here. You can see its reflection in the water. Probably the dark surface is underneath. I'm not exactly sure. Let's see if we can slide back over to the image. Oh, I don't have a visualization. Let's go ahead and put a visualization of that image in. So I'm going to go watch, and I think watch 3D will give us a visualization of that image. That didn't work. I might have picked out the wrong point here. Let me just pause it again. And of course I was wrong. It was watch, not 3D, but watch image. So I've got that corrected. And that's what that image looks like, and you can see how it corresponds to what we have. So we're taking a pretty good sample of the whole thing. It looks like we might have the mountain range pushed up a bit higher. That might be right. But we could actually fix that by just adjusting it also in Photoshop. And I will take a little break after this one to show you how you can sample any image down to 64 by 64 pixels, if that's the size you want to get it to. Okay, so now our radiuses are overlapping. We want to have some kind of control over our radiuses. So I'm going to make a code block that'll allow us to give us some adjustment. Code block, and it'll allow us to kind of just do some math here to fix that. Let me make sure I get the math right. So I'm going to just move over my image here. And so the way I'd written this before was in parentheses, we're going to take x times y, x being the data that's coming out of our brightness, times y, which will be our adjuster. And then we're going to add in 0.01. The only reason I'm adding that in is so that every dot gets a little bit of a circle. That will keep us from probably erroring out on the center point by radius, because some of the operations will fail because the radius can't be 0. Okay, so I'm getting a red warning here. So let me see what I've got wrong here. Just no input, I think. So let's go ahead, and I'm not getting the X and Y output. I'm going to pause that and figure out what's going on wrong. Hold on just a second. So the reason it was erroring out was I had 0.01. It needs a 0 in front of the decimal point. So I'm gonna feed that now in as my brightness value, and I'm going to create a slider. A number slider for inputting the Y value, and then connect that to the radius. And now if I adjust the slider value and run it, now I have huge ones, and I can just bring this down to, let's try, I'll just put in a value, 0.5, oops. And I'll try to run that. Okay, and now I'm starting to have some control over that. And there actually is no reason in this case, because we're going to be painting it maybe as a frit pattern, that those could overlap a little bit. So you could actually just also reduce those down if you wanted to. I'm gonna rename this right away. Instead of number slider, I'll go dot radius. Once again, so we're able to remember these things. All right, so those are just circles at this point. We really want to make them solids so that we can fill them. So actually I'm going to pull this all off because we're going to group this in a minute. So the next thing we want to do then is identify them as a patch. So that means we take a circle and we fill it. So I'm going to type in patch here. And we should get by patch. And if you read that definition, it's creates a surface by filling the interior of a closed boundary, which is that curve, that circle that we have. So we'll be able to make that into a patch. Now that'll give us a surface. So actually I can turn off the preview for the circle by center point, because we no longer really need to see that, because our surface by patch is going to be the thing that shows up. And I'll hit run again, and because I think this will work fairly quickly. Hopefully it will. Once again, we're back to taking a little more time to do that. We have a list. The list is correct because it's got 4,000 and it's got surfaces, but I'm not sure why the surface isn't showing up at all. Okay, I can't get the patches to show up, and I'm not exactly sure if that's a problem or not. There's nothing wrong with the way we've written the code so far, so I'm going to keep moving through. It may be just it doesn't, Dynamo won't preview in just a flat solid surface. So we're going to do one more step. So I'm showing you the Revit preview right now, and it looks pretty good. So I'm going to go back to our Dynamo definition, and I'm going to do one more thing here. I'm going to thicken that. So I'm going to do surface thicken. That'll take that patch and give it a depth. Surface.thicken. I can't believe how much I have to write surface by thickness. We'll put in the surface, and we'll just put in a number here for, I'll just use a number. Oops. Sorry. And I'll rename that dot thickness. Oh. And this is in feet always. These numbers are always in feet, so I don't want this to be extremely thick, so I'm just going to put 1 foot in, or excuse me, 1/10 of a foot, and I'll put that in for thickness. Now I've got the preview for the circles on. I don't have this, and the surface thickness is previewing, so let's just see if anything will show up here. I'm going to hit run. So I put that on pause because it'll take a little longer to run, a few more seconds. So it's still not showing that as solid patches, but I'm going to go ahead and remind you and myself to save this file just in case we have any crashes. Right now I do have, Revit is throwing up an error every so often about not having enough memory. So actually I'll go back into Revit and also save that file. Actually, there's very little point in doing that, but because I don't have anything in it, so I won't actually bother. Excuse me for that detour. Okay, so let's actually export something into Revit next, and I'll pick that up. This is we're 10 minutes into this clip, so I'll pick up the idea of exporting this into the next clip. The only thing I will do is I'm going to go ahead and group this, and then I'll call it the dot pattern or something like that. So I'll actually do that in this video. So I'm going to try and get to the right screen and keep dragging the wrong one, sorry. Create a group. Let's give it a fun color. Dot pattern. And then next we'll pick up the exporting it into or transferring it into Revit.